Okay, so now we're gonna take a look at what's under the hood of my car. It's a Audi A6 2003 with a 1.9 TDi engine. And this is all protective covers, and as you will see, I'm gonna remove all of them. This is the air intake duct where the air gets sucked in. So to remove the engine cover, you have to remove the oil dipstick at first, and then you have 3 screws to unscrew before you can just lift it up. And this is some kind of foam. The purpose of it is to reduce noise and vibration. Just throw it away there. Okay, so this is the battery cover. Remove it, and underneath you'll find the battery. This is the plenum chamber cover. And to get access to the chamber, you have to remove this rubber sealing. Comes off quite easily. And then you'll just have to pull it straight out. This is the air intake duct where the air gets sucked in, travels through this one and into the air filter housing. So now I'm gonna remove the whole duct. Just unscrew these 2 screws in the front. The duct comes in 3 pieces, so the first one is pulled out like this, and the 2 next ones are coming off quite. So this is where the air enters the filter housing. And to gain access to the filter, you have to undo these 4 clips. 2 at the front and 2 at the back. And when the clips are loose, you are able to lift off the top of the air filter box. Actually, when changing the filter, it's much easier to just remove the whole top. And to do that, you'll have to remove. There you can see the air filter. As you saw, it's quite tight in there too. So to remove the top, you'll have to unscrew this and unplug the mass airflow sensor connector, and you'll also have to take this house off by loosening that clamp. This is the headlight cover. So when changing your light bulbs, remove this cover, and to gain more space, it's probably best to just remove the whole air filter box. It's secured to the chassis by this nut. This is the cabin air filter, or you might as well call it the pollen and dust filter. Quite easy to remove. And here you have the service connection to your air conditioning system. The thickest pipe is the high pressure side, and these pipes travels to the front of the engine, to your AC compressor and to the condenser. This is the battery, of course, secured by this nut. Negative terminal and the positive terminal Remember to always disconnect your negative terminal first when disconnecting your battery. These two are fuel lines. So coming from your gas tank all the way to the fuel filter, and then from the fuel filter to your tandem pump. Actually, it's called tandem pump because it's a combined fuel and vacuum pump. It's driven by the camshaft and it supplies fuel to the injectors, and the vacuum part provides vacuum for your brake servo and other things. And to remove the fuel filter, you have to screw down there, loosen that screw, and you have to loosen all these 4 clamps and that pin, and just pull the fuel filter right up. The air passes through the mass airflow sensor right behind the air filter through this pipe. It connects to the turbo. The crankcase is also vented into this pipe right before the turbo through that PCV valve. And down below here is the turbo. The intake side on the right and the exhaust side on the left. That's the flex pipe leading to the catalytic converter. The wastegate actuator prevents the turbo from overspooling. When it's activated, it diverts exhaust gases away from the turbine inside the turbo. From the turbo, the air is sent to the intercooler. The warm pressurized air is conditioned and thrown into this massive silicon hose, which leads to the manifold absolute pressure sensor, or the MAP sensor. Over here we have the EGR valve, or the exhaust gas recirculation valve, and on the side is the intake manifold flap, also called the anti-shudder valve, which helps the car to shut down immediately after you turn the key. Under here is the exhaust manifold, and to reduce emissions, some of the exhaust is thrown back into the engine through this EGR cooler. The cooler itself conditions and cools down the warm exhaust and sends it further on till it reaches the EGR valve, and if the valve is open, the exhaust is sucked back into the engine. That usually happens when you are at cruising speed. The anti-shudder valve and the EGR valve are activated by vacuum. You can see these vacuum hoses coming from the vacuum pump, and these other vacuum hoses are connected to the N18 valve, which is the ERG vacuum regulator solenoid valve, and the N239, which is the changeover valve for the anti-shudder valve. This is where the engine oil is added, and this engine is quite reliable from what I've heard, but they are quite prone to camshafts failure if you add up the wrong oil, so be sure to service with the right oil. This timing belt cover is held on by 2 clips. If you get them undone, you can just pull this one straight up. There's the timing belt. Watch out for cracks, missing teeth, edge wear. This one is actually pretty new. You can see that the belt is pulled over the camshaft pulley, and the purpose of the belt is to synchronize the rotation of the crankshaft and the camshaft. It also drives the water pump. This is the fan for the air conditioning system, and it's controlled electronically. And here we have the radiator fan. This one is driven by the Serpentine Belt, but it's equipped by a clutch, and the clutch can disengage when the engine is cool. Now, behind those vacuum hoses, you might be able to spot the vacuum reservoir. It's used to maintain a certain vacuum level. There it is. And if we go further down, you can probably see the N75 valve. There it is. This one's connected to and controls the wastegate actuator. And this is the AC compressor and pulley. And you might notice something's odd here. The Serpentine Belt runs all the accessories. In this case, the alternator, viscous fan, and power steering pump. You can also see the tensioner down there. That one makes sure the belt has the proper tension. And the alternator powers the electrical system, as well as charging the battery. And you can see the belt has proper tension. The power steering pump down there creates pressure and helps you to push the steering in the desired direction. There is the power steering fluid reservoir. When the engine's cold, the fluid's cold, it's supposed to be at the minimum mark. You'll see that right here. When the engine and the fluid is warm, it should at least not exceed the maximum mark. Inside this housing is the engine oil filter. To open up, you need a wrench and turn anti-clockwise. To check your oil level, pull the dipstick out. Just wipe it off with a clean cloth. I should mention you have to do this when the engine's cold, or at least when it has been sitting for maybe half an hour, 20 minutes or so. Insert the dipstick again, and when you take it out, just notice how high the oil reaches on the dipstick. It should be between the minimum and maximum mark. It's important not to overfill, but if it's below the minimum mark, you have to add some more oil. Coolant reservoir. Remember, do not open this when the engine is warm. Levels between min and max mark. The fluid absorbs heat from the engine and dissipates it through the radiator. You can see this house carries coolant between the engine and the radiator. The liquid also contains rust inhibitors and antifreeze, so you have to be sure to replace them at the recommended interval. There's the radiator, and here is the condenser for the air conditioning system. This is where you top off washer fluids, and inside this little box is the control module for your ABS or anti-lock braking system. You can see these lines travel all the way up to your brake booster. And in front of the brake booster is the brake fluid reservoir. And on the right, that black box you can see over there is underneath is the engine control unit and fuse box. You can also see that the brake booster is connected to the vacuum pump. Okay, and that's it for now.